everything, then he creates us. Which essentially means that we are possessors of many things, but we're owners of nothing. God creates everything, then he creates us, and then he gives us an assignment. He says after, right, we looked at this, the order of creation, everything has already been created, then we come. And then God says, you know what, now you have an assignment. It says let them rule over everything. So essentially from the very beginning, we can see that God's expectation of us is to be responsible managers of all of God's resources to bring God the glory that he deserves and for the betterment of his creation. So from the very beginning, we see that there's an expectation for us to be good stewards. To be good stewards. Owners of nothing, possessors of many things, and how we handle those many things has the capability and has the potential to speak to who God truly is. God gives us opportunity to bring glory to his name. God gives us opportunity to find joy, peace, fulfillment. God gives us an opportunity to do things for the betterment of creation, to bring glory and honor to his name. He gives us the resources. He gives us resources. He gives us gifts and talents. And so from our very first passage of the stewardship series, this was the definition of stewardship. The responsible management over God's resources to bring glory to God and the betterment of his creation. And you know what's also a resource? It's time. We've been given an allotted time. We've got a birth date and we've got a death date. God gives us this time. We've got this resource of time. And the question is, are we going to be responsible managers of the time that we have to bring glory and honor to his name and to experience life the way God desires for us to? So we looked at that last week. Time. And what did we know about time? Time is constant. It doesn't slow down and it doesn't speed up. But a lot of times we experience time differently because of factors that are weighing on us. Sometimes it feels like we don't have enough time, and sometimes it seems like time is just extended because of what's acting upon us. So based upon what's happening in life, we experience and we process time different. We get to certain moments or we get to certain seasons in our lives where we're like, man, it's not enough time in a day. But it's always been that much time. Or we're somewhere that we don't want to be. We're like, man, it's taking too much time. But it's always been that much time. Depending on what is happening in life, we are processing and experiencing something that's constant, different. But this is where we are as we get into part 2 of time. This is what it feels like. I don't know how much time I have to pour into the physical aspect of me. Hey, I got to eat, I got to rest, I got to take care of my body, I got to be healthy. But man, I need to take care of my spiritual side as well, because there's more to life than just this body. So now I have to make time for my spiritual development. But then I have to devote time from a social perspective because, hey, we're in relationships. I've got people that expect things of me. I've got obligations to other people. I've got people that depend on me. I've got people that look up to me. How do I handle my relationships? How do I have enough time for each? And then I've got me. Everything in life, all of this weighs on me emotionally. So how am I staying healthy from an emotional standpoint? I I've only got a certain amount of time in a day. I've only got a certain amount of time in a week. I've only got a certain amount of time in a year. And it seems like I'm trying to bounce to and fro from all of these different areas of life that makes up the totality of me. And it seems like I don't have enough time. I want to be healthy in each one of these spheres of life. But how do I do it? There's so much I want to do, but there's so much expected of me. There's so much I have an interest in, but there's so many things that take up my time right now to where I don't see where the time is going to come for me to invest in things that I know that I should be doing. It's a constant struggle. This is how we go through life. And so what do? We try to make sure that we can fill up each portion of these areas in our lives, going back and forth, to and fro, making sure that we spend enough time here. All right, I did that. Well, let me make sure I spend enough time here. All right, I did that. And let me make sure I spend enough time here. And we actually, as we are trying to manage time, we actually begin to think that this is balance. Well, I spent time with you yesterday. Those of you who are in relationships. But now I just need this me time. But I don't want to go and spend time with this person. But see, this is what I need to be doing. We're bouncing back and forth and we're saying, hey, I just spent that much time there, so I'm good. So now let me go over here and do this. But that is not actually balance. Balance, it's where all of those things come together. Because if you live like this, then you disregard how things are connected. And especially when God comes in the picture. A lot of times you've got people that are so heavenly focused that they are no earthly good. They spend all their time right here and they think that they're winning, but they have disregarded the fact that, hey, this has to do with this, and this, and this. And if you only remain right here, then you end up sending the false perception of who God truly is, because you're claiming him, but then your relationships are terrible. That makes sense? Spiritually, I say I love God, I'm in relationship with God, but I have a relationship with my son that's damaging his emotional health. Look at that. We've got to begin to have balance. This could read a lot differently. It says, you know what? I'm in a place to where God is growing me. He's teaching me. I understand now what it means to be in relationship, right, with those who are around me. How if I'm at my best, then I can put them at their best. And then they're able to be emotionally stable and healthy because I'm in a good place with God. So now I'm being able to experience the fullness of life by bringing all of these things together. So now my time that I have is so much more fuller, it's so much more richer, because now I'm in a space where I'm bringing all of these things together. Before, I thought that I had to go here, dedicate time here, and dedicate time here. But no, it's actually finding that sweet spot, but it's actually having God first. And in order for us to have that type of balance, look at what it says. God says this. Let me go to, should I go? I'm going to go right now. I'm going to speed it up, and I'm going to come back to it. This sweet spot right here. Yes. In order for us to get here, there's got to be trust. In order for you to get to a place to where you can be a responsible manager and steward of time, there's got to be trust. You say, well, trust? Yes. Look at this. Matthew chapter 6, verse 33 says this. That was our opening passage. It says, but seek ye first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all of these things will be given to you as well. Now, what's interesting is this is the Sermon on the Mount. So Jesus is talking about pretty much all of life. But then he gets to this point. He said, you know what? I'm talking about this. I'm talking about loving other people. I'm talking about relationships. I'm talking about when you pray. I'm talking about everything, how to treat your enemies. I'm talking about everything. But I'm getting to this point now where I say, you know what? But seek ye first the kingdom of heaven and its righteousness, and everything else will be given to you. So essentially, God is saying, you know what? I know that you have all of these other needs in life. I know that you have all of these other priorities in life, these obligations in life. I know that you have to take care of yourself physically, emotionally, socially, but guess what? I've got to be first. I've got to be first. And everything else will shape up. God will never call us to do something at the expense of something else that he stands for. God says, I'm not going to say I have to be first in your life at the expense of your relationship. I'm saying I want to be first in your life because it will inform how you go into a relationship healthy. Make sense? A lot of times life seems out of balance and it seems like time is managing us because God isn't first. It seems like we're losing a handle and a grip on time as if it's passing us by because God isn't first. It happens. God is the only one capable of bringing harmony in life. He's the only one capable that can bring harmony in life because that's what we're searching for. But we try to find harmony like this. But everything's disconnected. And life is fluid. Everything touches one another in life. Right now, you are in an emotional state. And right now, you are in a relationship. We're in relationship with one another. And right now, you're in a social setting. And right now, this is spiritual edification. That's no separation. That's how life is. But if you compartmentalize them and you separate them and there's space in between all of these different areas in your life, then there's going to be a disconnect and you're going to confuse people, you will hurt people and yourself. And as you try to manage all of the different aspects of you, you feel like you're losing time. And we get upset because we feel like we've been investing so much time in these particular areas. And so sometimes we feel like we're justified to give up on it, but actually we've been going about it the wrong way. And then we'll have statements like, you know what, I wasted so much time. Did you waste time or did you not understand time? Did you not comprehend how to manage that? Was God not first? Was he not a priority? So in order to be a good steward over time, it takes trust because you have to trust God with being number one. Do you trust God with being number one? This passage is important because both of these things right here is present tense. God says, but seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. I'll take care of everything else. Just put me first. And God says this, you know what? I'm going to say it in present tense. Because you should always be seeking me and always be desiring to be in my presence, to have me first, to inform how you go about every other area of your life. And I promise you, it'll be worth the time. The second thing that's needed to be a good steward of time is priorities. He said, you got to trust me to be first. And if I'm first, then that means you've got to be able to prioritize me. When you're talking about priorities, there are some things that are primary and there are some things that are secondary. And then there are some things that just don't deserve the time. Bless you. God says, can you prioritize your life in a way to where you're constantly pursuing me, constantly seeking me and seeking my wisdom so that you can go into every other aspect of life in a healthy way? Because if we don't, life will be imbalanced. We'll be out of balance. And when you're out of balance, it has a lot of effects on you. When there's no balance, when there's a lack of rest, it affects your health. It affects your attentiveness, being able to actually be in a healthy state. Or when your self-worth is based on how other people view you, that'll throw your life out of balance, and then you lose time because you're always spending time trying to live in a way that's pleasing to other people. And people are always changing, which means your perception of yourself is always changing. You lose track of time. Time begins to be unmanageable when somebody expects for you to be everything for them. And because you're compassionate, you want to be everything for them. But then somewhere along the way, you lose sight of you. Which means that in order to be a good steward over time, yes, you must have trust. Trust God to be number one. You've got to be able to prioritize, and then you've got to be able to set boundaries. Because prioritizing means that you are actually setting boundaries. If you can have a distinction between what gets my time first, or what's primary and what's secondary, those are boundaries. Because if we are poor managers of time, then we'll feel like we're being managed by life instead of managing our lives. Make sense? Time is a beautiful resource, but it's also a resource that you can't recoup. Time spent is time spent. And all of us know time spent. What we don't know is time left. So we've got to begin to look at time in two ways. We've got to look at time in two ways. You've got chronos time, CHRONOS, which is chronological time. Right? Today, tomorrow, next week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This year I'll be this age. Next year I'll be this age. That's chronological order. That's chronos time. But then there's kairos time. Kairos. Kairos time. Kairos time is the appropriate time or the quality of time. The question that you ask about Kairos time is, how much did you get out of it? What do we ask each other on Sunday? Or what do we ask each other after we've spent some time together? We don't say, how much time did you have at church? We say, how was church? That's the different time. We're asking about the quality of time. God says, you know what? Yes, I've given you a certain amount of chronological time that you're going to experience here on earth. But what I'm most concerned about is your Kairos time, the fullness and the quality of life that you experience in that allotted time. And if life is going to be full, if you're going to live on Kairos time where you have a lot of quality in life, even if it's a short amount of chronological time, if I'm first, if I'm prioritized, and they have the right boundaries in your life, then it'll be of good quality. God says, I came that you may have life and have it more abundantly. I'm concerned about the quality of your life. How was the time that I gave you? We got a lot up here. But this will help us from a very practical sense. You either live life, there's two things that dictate how we spend our time: urgency and importance. You've got quadrant 1, which is urgent and important. These are crises that may happen in life. Pressing problems that could happen in life. This is where we produce, because we're responding to needs and we're responding to challenges. I have to do something, because if I don't do something, it's going to take me over. So it's urgent and it's important. If I don't act, life just spirals out of control. This is stuff that I just don't even have to think about. This is what I have to get done. This is what I have to do. Then you have quadrant 2, where it's not urgent, but it's important. This is where you have devotion, spirituality. This is where you plan. This is where you do your preparation. This is where you do preventative care. Could be exercising, could be eating right, could be taking the time, right, to do some things that set you up for success. Could be relationship building. This could be empowering others, like our leadership retreat. This quadrant right here is the quality of time. This is where you build quality. Quadrant 3 is urgent, but it's not important. And this is known as the deception quadrant. Because you're doing things that are urgent, but they're not important. Because it's urgent, sometimes we think it's important. This is where we spend a lot of time meeting other people's needs. It's urgent. They need your help. They need you to do something. They need you to act. And we think it's important because it's somebody else's needs and priorities. Then you have the 4th quadrant, where this is where we try to recoup. Man, I got to get away from all this stuff that's happening in 1 and 3. So I'm just going to sit here. I don't want to do nothing. I don't want to be disturbed. I don't want nobody to call me. I'm going to turn my phone off. But sometimes we get here And it puts us back further because right here, we could spend time pouring into a lot of things that creates a lot of separation with us spiritually with God, that takes away from the quality of life, meaningless or mindless activities. So where do you think most people spend their time? 3 and 4? Three and 4? Doing things that are not urgent and they're not important. They're not helpful and they're not meaningful. But we feel like this is the only way I can recoup and get enough energy to go back out there to war, right? Out to war and out to handle all of these fires, put out all these fires, handle other people's issues. But watch this. We spend a lot of time in one, and there's always going to be things that we have to do. There's always going to be things that are urgent and are important. But you know what keeps this list down? Or I should say, you know what keeps that list up? It's procrastination. So because I put off things for so long and I didn't spend time planning and preparing and doing preventative care and relationship building, now I've got to keep putting out all these fires all the time and everything is urgent and everything is important. Because I haven't been responsible with my time and a good steward over my time so that I can have the quality of life that God desires for me to have, I'm always right here putting out fires. And some of these fires I've created because I procrastinated and put things off for so long. Does that hit home? Yeah, that's us. Yeah, that's what we do. So we've got to begin to understand and look at what's getting our time. Because this is where we find the quality of life. So we've got to be able to create the right boundaries. We've got to begin to trust God with our time. We've got to begin to have priorities so that we can get some quality out of life. So that we can experience this Kairos time, the fullness of life that God has for us to live and to experience. But these are very practical things that we can begin to do to put ourselves in a position to be good stewards over this precious resource of time that God has given us. And we use it properly, we manage it properly, we steward it properly to bring glory to His name and for the betterment of His creation. Amen.